Coming up on 5 Minute News. Democrat votes prevent a government shutdown. Senate panel to end Tuberville's blockade of military nominations. And Israel raids Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. It's Wednesday, November 15. I'm Anthony Davis. The U.S. House voted yesterday to prevent a government shutdown after new Republican Speaker Mike Johnson was forced to reach across the aisle to Democrats when hard-right conservatives revolted against his plan. Johnson's proposal to temporarily fund the government into the new year passed on a bipartisan 336-95 tally, but 93 Republicans voted against it. It was the first time the new Speaker had to force vital legislation through the House, and he showed a willingness to leave his right-flank Republicans behind, the same political move that cost the last House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, his job just weeks ago. Rather than the applause and handshakes that usually follow passage of a bill, several hardline conservatives animatedly confronted the Speaker as they exited the chamber. Without enough support from his Republican majority, Johnson had little choice but to rely on Democrats to ensure passage to keep the federal government running. Johnson's proposal puts forward a unique two-part process that temporarily funds some federal agencies to January 19th and others to February 2nd. It's a continuing resolution, or CR, that comes without any of the deep cuts conservatives have demanded all year. It also fails to include President Joe Biden's request for nearly $106 billion for Ukraine, Israel, border security, and other supplemental funds. Johnson, who announced his endorsement on Tuesday of authoritarian dictator Donald Trump as the Republican nominee for president, hit the airwaves to sell his approach and met privately Monday night with the Conservative Freedom Caucus. The opposition from hardline conservatives left Johnson with few other options than to skip what's typically a party-only procedural vote and rely on another process that requires a two-thirds tally with Democrats for passage. Senate Democrats pushed ahead on Tuesday with a resolution that would allow for the quick confirmation of hundreds of military nominees, an attempt to maneuver around a blockade from Senator Tommy Tuberville over a Pentagon abortion policy. Almost 400 military nominations are in limbo, and the number is growing due to Tuberville's blanket hold on confirmations and promotions for senior military officers. Despite bipartisan outrage and pressure from members of his own party, the Alabama senator has dug in as he fights the Pentagon to end its abortion policy. It's a stance that has left key national security positions unfilled and military families with an uncertain path forward. There has been a lot of negativity and dysfunction in the Senate these days, but Senator Tuberville has single-handedly brought the Senate to a new low, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said at the Senate Rules Committee meeting where the resolution was approved. The Senate has traditionally confirmed large batches of military officers together, but that process can be upended by just one senator who objects. The resolution will now head to the Senate floor for a vote, where Democrats will need at least 9 Republican votes for passage. While Republicans on the Rules panel opposed the measure, arguing that the move could erode the powers of the minority in the Senate, some have signaled they might change their minds if Tuberville does not drop the holds before then. The Israeli military said it was carrying out a raid on Wednesday against Hamas militants in Al-Shifa hospital, having urged them to surrender with thousands of Palestinian civilians still sheltering inside Gaza Strip's biggest hospital. Global calls for a humanitarian ceasefire have mounted in recent days, and the fate of Al-Shifa has become a focus of international alarm because of worsening conditions in the facility, where thousands of patients, medical staff, and displaced people have been trapped during the Israeli assault on Gaza in the past 5 weeks. Israel has said that Hamas has a command center underneath Al-Shifa and uses the hospital and tunnels beneath it to conceal military operations and to hold hostages. Hamas denies it. Israeli army spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner said the hospital and compound were for Hamas a central hub of their operations, perhaps even the beating heart, and maybe even a center of gravity. The US said on Tuesday that its own intelligence supported Israel's conclusions. Meanwhile, the Biden administration is increasingly seeking ways to restrain the Israeli military in an effort to slow the civilian toll and limit the risk of a wider conflict, while it faces a rising level of internal dissent over its Middle East policy. In a letter presented to Biden and his cabinet on Tuesday, more than 500 political appointees and staff members from about 40 agencies across the administration criticized the extent of the president's support for Israel in its war in Gaza. The letter, whose signatories are anonymous, reflects mounting unease among U.S. officials about Biden's policy in the first weeks of the war of emphasizing Israel's right to defend itself in public, while trying to restrain its retaliation in private. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.
A crazy schedule can make it easy to fall back into your dinner-time recipe rut. Keep mealtime exciting with over 40 recipes to choose from every week, so there's always something delicious to discover with HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. With so many in-season ingredients, you'll taste all the freshness of fall in every bite of HelloFresh's chef-crafted recipes. Produce travels from the farm to your door for peak ripeness you can taste. We all know HelloFresh takes the hassle out of mealtime, but did you know it can also save you money? HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout. That means less stress in your day and more money back in your pocket. HelloFresh makes cooking so easy and fast. It's something that I really need in my life and really look forward to. Go to hellofresh.com/55minute and use code 55minute for 50% off plus free shipping. That's hellofresh.com/55minute and use code 55minute for 50% off plus free shipping. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.